All right, welcome in, everybody. How are we? Soccer Matters is on the air here on ESPN 97.5, presented by the Daspit Law Firm. Behind the glass tonight, Abigail Hong. How was the weekend? Two kinds of football, and of course, I don't think any of us saw the Eagles' domination over the Chiefs, but that's what we got. There will be no three-peat for Kansas City and no $1 million for Pat Riley. We stream at ESPN975.com. And of course, a reminder, we are always sponsored by the Daspit Law Firm. All right, Houston World Cup 2026 is coming our way. I'm going to lay this out in a Cliff Notes version tonight. Well, kinda, and what it means, how we got here, and the history we have in what I call Soccer City, USA. And it's a history I think that we don't fully understand here in mainstream media. We've got American and Mexican national team players delivering in Europe this weekend. Some wonderful stuff to talk about there. And a state and much, much more here. But let's get started here. And this is kind of a reminder, but this, in a way, to me, is something that just does not seem to be grasped entirely by our city. I know the talk about the World Cup is about the economics, et cetera, but let's do a deep dive on what this soccer city is. I call Houston Soccer City, USA, yet we don't know it. We have remarkable history at the professional level. We'll get into that in a bit. World Cup 2026 is coming to the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. 48 teams, the largest World Cup ever. I think it's 485 days from now. So yes, World Cup 2026 is coming to Houston. As a city, we bid on it, and we won the bid. The committee did a wonderful job. The world's greatest sporting event. Yes, the World Cup is coming to Houston in 2026. So we're going to host 7 games, 7 matches in the city, June 14th, 17th, 20, 23, and 26. Those will be group stage games. And then we have 2 elimination games on the 29th and July 4th. This all at the amazing Energy Stadium. You've heard me have David Fletcher on the show before. Take that all in for a second. 7 World Cup matches here. Now, here's a little history of the World Cup. This will be only the 23rd World Cup ever held. Started in 1930. For comparison, Super Bowl just completed a 59th. And by the way, the first Super Bowl in 1967, but it's done annually. The World Cup is every 4 years. National teams that play here will bring us visitors from all over the world because of the power of the World Cup, because it only occurs every 4 years. Not every year, every 4 years. So it's a patient process for everyone involved, including the fans. Long qualification for teams. We're going to find out what teams will be here in December of 2025 when the draw takes place. We'll have the eyes of the world on us. We'll be amazing hosts. We know how to run events. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic for those of us here in Houston and for those of us that will come from all over the world, that will descend on Houston, not only to attend matches, but to just be in the host city and near the stadiums and their team. It'll be a party. It'll be a celebration. Not everybody's going to get into games, but all are going to come to celebrate the sport, the passion of it in and around the surrounding areas. And yes, this will be an economic boom for the city. You've heard that. You'll hear that again. But it's not going to be only an economic boom for the Fortune 500 companies, but also for mid to smaller size business who all will stand to benefit. My sponsors of this show are going to gain. So if you're a business owner, attach yourself to the World Cup and get ahead of it. How we won the bid, this has got to be examined. The central reason why Houston won the bid is because, obviously, the city, location, infrastructure, all those things played into it. But the central reason for me why Houston won the bid is because of those in the Houston soccer community. Those of you that love soccer passionately, and for many of you, it's lifestyle. The bid was won because you, the soccer player at all levels, from youth, high school, college, adult, those that participate, amateur leagues, and love playing the game, those that spill out onto the fields nightly including youth that one day dream of playing in a World Cup. And let me remind you, there are many young boys and girls dreaming of one day playing in the World Cup every night on fields in Houston. Number two, you, the coaches and teachers, the mentors at all levels, whether you're coaching your 2-year-old son or daughter, right on up to the professional level, you that play the game, participate on fields throughout the city. Huge reason why. Administrators, schedulers, those that do the behind-the-scenes promotion of the game, even podcasters, those that talk about the game, all part of it. And here's the big one. You, the supporters groups, whether it's the Dynamo, Barcelona, Tigres, Club America, Rayados, Real Madrid, Manchester United, the women's game, those that go and support youth and high school games, college games, right on up to the Dynamo and Dash, and those that have come out to the massive content at Energy Stadium, starting way back with the first ever game there, Mexico and the U.S., and Shell Energy Stadium with the U.S. men's national team, Argentina, Mexico, Manchester United, Milan, Nigeria, Barcelona. We can go on and on. Club America, Tigres. They draw huge crowds, influencing and opening those eyes of those from around the world to the soccer passion that exists in Houston, Texas. And then, of course, those that buy the tickets, that shell out their hard-earned money. You're huge. You're huge in showing up at these games, spending your money, making it viable, and filling both Energy Stadium and Shell Energy Stadium, which gets tremendous exposure. So let me just add something else here. The history of the professional game in Houston. Again, this is all a part of it. We don't do a good job of telling this story. In fact, a lot of people in key positions don't even have this knowledge, which they need to learn when it comes to some of the high-end positions of soccer in our city. Our professional soccer dates back to 1967. So here's the story. 1966, England wins the World Cup as the host nation. In 1967, the next year, the first ever soccer game is played in the Astrodome, at the time considered the 8th wonder of the world. And guess who plays the first ever game? Real Madrid, which right now you might say is the biggest sporting property in the world. It's certainly up there amongst it. Real Madrid playing West Ham United. The captain of West Ham United was Bobby Moore. Well, the year before, in 1966, Bobby Moore was the captain of England and lifted the World Cup, the Jules Rimet Trophy, as the winners. This is the only World Cup England has ever won. And to think that in 1967, they would be in the Astrodome is amazing. We had a press conference over there announcing the excitement of the World Cup recently over at Energy Stadium. And as I listened to everybody and city people and the mayor and everybody, I looked out the window and I said, I don't even know if this room understands that Pelé, the only men's player to have ever won the World Cup 3 times, played in that Astrodome. That Bobby Moore, the captain of England, played in that Astrodome with West Ham United. It's tremendous history. It must be history that we keep alive. So now on to our professional soccer history. 1960s, you had the Houston Stars. Still have Billy Safidis in town here, who played on that team. 70s, the Houston Hurricane and the North American Soccer League, and then the indoor Houston Summit, which was aptly named after the Summit, which is now Lakewood Church. 1980s, the Houston Dynamos. This was a team that I played on. Soccer was fighting hard. And the current Dynamo team took their name from the 80s plural Houston Dynamos. 1990s, you got the Houston Hotshots indoor team. Now, by the way, these owners in those early years, they were in it because of passion. They weren't necessarily in it because they thought they were going to turn a profit. They weren't investors. They loved the game. They loved the game, which is different than now soccer currently in MLS, because now you can be an investor in Major League Soccer and you can get a return, which was much different. So that was the 90s. Houston Hotshots Indoor filled the Summit on a couple of occasions. 2006, the return of professional soccer with the Houston Dynamo, who were relocated from San Jose. We all remember that. Initially, when Oliver Luck was the head of the team, they were going to name it Houston 1836. It was changed to the Houston Dynamos. It got a little bit political. And then the Houston Dash women's team was added. But so many legendary names have gone through these pro teams. Good number of them have played in World Cups. Most recent times, you would say Brad Davis with the Houston Dynamo and DeMarcus Beasley. But going way back, Wim Serbier, who played in the 1974 World Cup final for the Netherlands against West Germany, was here in Houston in the 80s on the Dynamos as an older player, as a teammate. So through this history of the professional game, we have this amazing World Cup connection. We also have those that grew up playing on these fields in Houston that have gone on to represent their country's national teams. And I'm not just talking about the U.S. Our soccer community provides top players and coaches. We're providers to college programs, pro teams around the country, and even the world. When the Dynamo opened their season here in 2025, they play FC Dallas. The coach of FC Dallas is Eric Quill, who grew up playing on fields like Bear Creek Park, Meyer Park in Houston. Went on to play in Major League Soccer. Now he is going to come back and make his coaching debut here. I mean, these are amazing stories. We've had winners of the Herman Award, which is like the Heisman Award. Johnny Torres, Chris Bondi. Bondi now the coach at UConn. Torres has been the coach at Creighton. You have other locals that have coached big programs. Chad Riley at Notre Dame. And I'm not mentioning everybody. It's remarkable. There's a lot I don't even know of. And if you want to let me know about them, well, do that. But our community provides players, coaches, administrators, people that all deeply love and are passionate about the sport. And although soccer's growth has always been difficult, trust me, I was a professional player during the tough times. Wouldn't take anything back for a minute, and neither would my teammates. The interest in development, though, of this game, it did struggle during different time periods, but now we're in a better time period, and we're actually going to be hosting 7 World Cup games here in Houston. Unbelievable. Let that sink in. We are hosting 7 World Cup games in 2026. And yes, for me, Houston is Soccer City, USA, but we really need to get this information out about the World Cup and about our soccer history to those that don't know about it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but let us use it as a way to educate about this beautiful game in our beautiful city that's going to host the World Cup. And by the way, if you want me to help you do that, you know where to find me every Tuesday and Wednesday night on Soccer Matters. All right, we're going to take a break here. Good segment to get it started. A big thank you to our presenting sponsor, John Daspit and the Daspit Law Firm. DaspitLaw.com, 713, call now. John and his firm are personal injury attorneys. You want the best, you get in a car, a boat, a motorcycle accident, one of these times that are very nerve-wracking. You need the best in personal injury attorneys. And the best is the Daspit Law Firm. 713, call now, DaspitLaw.com. They're going to work for you 24/7 nights and weekends. They'll take your case. They're supporting soccer on the airwaves also, so there's a common element right there. It's the Daspit Law Firm, 713, call now. Also, big shout out to Cactus Music. My great friend Quinn down there. Cactus Music is a historic and legendary music store. Vinyl, CDs, pre-owned, new. You go in there, Staff is highly intelligent about music. I go in there, I hang out a lot. Sometimes don't leave there for quite a while. They got really cool T-shirts too. It is Cactus Music. Get in there. If you're a music lover, I certainly think it dovetails with the great game of soccer. And also Lamont Brands, our Soccer Matters T-shirts are there. They come in all colors. LamontBrands.com. You can also get the trucker hats there. Would love to see people wearing them. When I go to do a Dynamo game, I love walking through the stadium and seeing people with the T-shirts on. Sometimes they'll come up to me. It's a lot of fun. And it is the common bond that we share. Houston Soccer City, USA. We're going to take a break. We're hosting the World Cup in 2026. We'll come back. We got more to come.
You're listening to Soccer Matters on ESPN 97.5.
And on ESPN 92.5.
Brought to you by the Daspit Law Firm. From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's Glenn Davis.
All right, welcome back to Soccer Matters on ESPN 97.5. Quick word here for Nico Nico's Greek and American Cafe. Get over to Nico Nico's. The best Greek food in the city. Locations, the new one in the Woodlands. You also have one out on I-10 in the Beltway. Incredible baked goods as well, but you've got all the traditional souvlaki, gyro, lamb shanks, you name it. The Mediterranean diet is the thing. It is Nico Nico's Greek and American Cafe. And by the way, Dimitri's son, Christanos, who played high school football at Strake Jesuit, is going to end up continuing his career at UNLV on signing day. So a nice photo of him that we put up. So congratulations to him, and exciting times. No matter what the sport is, for young athletes who want to get to the next level, the signing day is a big deal. We have a bunch of them in soccer. And by the way, you can let me know about those, and we'll give them a mention on the air. Also, Hugh O'Connor's Pub, 2 locations, I-10, the Marquee Entertainment Center. Liverpool fans probably a little bit upset after the 1-0 loss to Plymouth in the Cup. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they're like, you know what, good riddance. We're out of this Cup. We can focus on the 2 primary titles, and that is the Premier League and the Champions League. And there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but Arne Slot did rest a number of players. That's Hugh O'Connor's Pub, though. That's the home of Houston LFC, the Liverpool supporters group out there. They've been great supporters of the show. By the way, Hugh O'Connor's has another outlet over on Dickens. That's where we did the live broadcast. We're going to be doing a monthly live broadcast. I can't reveal yet where, but super excited about this. I'm kind of going to be the sort of in-house band. So I hope a lot of people will come out, support the business that's going to get behind this, and come and enjoy live radio. I plan on having guests, giveaways. We'll raffle some jerseys, soccer balls, all kinds of things. So keep that a little bit in mind. All right, let's start off with a little Mexican league. Rayados went down to to Juarez, got beat 2-1 in that game. Now, obviously, losing that game away is almost secondary to the fact that Sergio Ramos is going to join Monterrey. They finalized the signing. Tato Noriega came back to Monterrey, and he said, kind of was coy about when he's going to make his debut. He doesn't want him to debut immediately. Here's what he said, quote, "Not immediately because we want to be cautious. He's in perfect physical and mental condition for competition. We've seen what happened when Sergio Canales arrived. We experienced it with Lucas Ocampos. Playing in Mexico is never easy," he noted. He said, quote, "People think it's easy, but we have different altitudes, different temperatures moving from one stadium to another. We have to be cautious with Sergio Ramos." And yeah, I think this is smart. Seasons go quickly, so they're going to want to get him involved as quick as possible. We saw a litany of videos from him on Instagram. Ramos working out constantly, the abs, the whole thing. So I would have to think from a physical standpoint, he's in a pretty good place. All right, Tigres got a victory. They remain 4-1-1, and Tigres now is they got a 2-1 victory over Atlas. Brunetta opened the scoring in that. They need him to be big. 3-3, León and Toluca. Roberto Morales with a late equalizer for Toluca. Jaimes Rodriguez goes 90 minutes for León. Hector Herrera off the bench in the 71st for Toluca. So he's being used in a subs role right now, which might tell us something. At this point now, he's been there long enough that if he was going to be utilized as a starter, you might think he would be, but we'll see how that all plays out. The other very important thing is Rodrigo Echeverri had a pair for León in that one. So you've got the top 3 teams. Club America on top, followed by Jaimes Rodriguez and Leon. They're getting return on him, and then Tigres under Veljko Paunovic at 4-1-1 in third place. So there you go. We did talk about Joao Felix and Milan, so I guess I'll go to the Empoli-Milan game. Rafael Leao, 68th minute. Santiago Jimenez in the 76th. The big storyline here, Christian Pulisic had 2 assists coming off the bench in this one. Joao Felix now has been on a lot of big clubs, and he's one of the recent signings along with Kyle Walker and Santiago Jimenez at Milan. He's going to have to deliver, though. I mean, I think he's running out of chances. So we'll see how that all works out. We did mention Arne Slot gambling and losing to the lowest team, by the way, in the championship in Plymouth. So they're focused now. Premier League, Champions League. There you go. La Liga, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, 1-1 in this one. This was a game that Real Madrid was the better team. Julian Alvarez from the penalty spot for Atleti in the 35th. Kylian Mbappe in the 50th picked up a rebound and slotted it home. 23-10 in shots for Real Madrid over Atletico Madrid. They had 60% of the possession. Big man of the match really for Atleti was Jan Oblak in goal. 8 saves, a couple of them really critical. But what happens here now is this puts us in a really interesting place here, because Real Madrid now has a 2-point lead over both Atleti and Barcelona, because Barcelona got a 4-1 victory over the weekend against Sevilla. So big for them. They are now only 2 points off the pace here. Sad note here, PSV on Friday said that U.S. men's national team striker Ricardo Pepi is likely going to be out for the rest of the season. Meniscus injury. This was a knee injury that was in the Champions League match against Liverpool. Game he scored and got the game winner in that 3-2 over Liverpool. That guaranteed that PSV would finish in the top 16 of that first phase, but he left the match at the 76th minute and then was treated for the knee injury. Very sad, because a lot of teams interested in him. He's kind of been doing it in a subs role there. So very tough stuff for Ricardo Pepi. On to another U.S. striker, Josh Sargent of Norwich. 4 goals in 3 games since a return from injury. That's in the English Championship. One of the goals, fantastic. He works, a beautiful tight 1-2 at the top of the box after a great early entry ball out of midfield into the box, and then he just tags one. I mean, this is a rising blast. It just goes into the stratosphere, hits the far upper corner, hits it across the face of the goalkeeper. Outside of that, though, they ended up 1-1 draw with Derby, which wasn't good. They are now in 8th place. But Josh Sargent is scoring goals. So that's one U.S. national team fans will be certainly happy to see right there. So the Dynamo go back to Fort Lauderdale. They've got a couple of more preseason matches here to fine-tune it before the FC Dallas visit, of course, which we mentioned includes a visit and a return for Eric Quill here, who's worked so hard at his coaching after being a player in Major League Soccer. Just wonder why these guys were never involved in the Dynamo years back before Ted Siegel took the club over. You had the likes of Josh Gardner, who's now with MLS Next. You had Eric Quill. You have a lot of local Houston talent that you can mine here that has the connection to the Houston community that could be working for the organization. And to be community, you do have to hire locals. We just seem to export all our coaching and playing talent constantly. But that's one to keep an eye on. But Eric Quill will come back. This is a good storyline. It's the rivalry. It's FC Dallas Dynamo. Tickets at HoustonDynamo.com. And that'll be the coaching debut in Major League Soccer for Eric Quill, who gets the job on his second interview after running their youth program. And then he went to the USL, took the New Mexico United job, but a man that's passionate through and through soccer-wise, and that's going to be a good storyline. And then, of course, you get the Inter Miami game. So Dynamo go back to Fort Lauderdale. I think it's Columbus and DC United they're going to get in preseason matches. That'll be good for them as they prepare for their season. I think it's pretty clear here that Jack McGlynn is going to be the big offseason signing up to this point. Artur is going to have to work with him. And Artur is going to, obviously have to guide a young talent in front of him. And then I think it's Sebastian Kowalczyk, who likely will get the Coco role. So you'll get a lot of energy, a lot of effort. You've heard Ben Olsen talking about box occupation, which essentially translate into, getting more players into the penalty area, increasing your chances of scoring goals. Kowalczyk is certainly a worker. So we're going to see how that goes. Now, Dynamo fans are going, well, wait a second. We lost Coco Karaski and Hector. How can this be an upgrade? Well, time will tell. And I don't think the Dynamo, any question, had to cut loose Hector Herrera. Now they still could go big with a DP. We'll see what that is. But I think if you think of the Dynamo and you listen to the president of their soccer operations, Pat Onstad, you listen to Ben Olsen, they look to put the collective together. They want players that are going to fit. I think sometimes these eclectic players that can be game winners without a doubt, that bring people to the stadium, they also maybe aren't as manageable and coachable. And sometimes coaches are so focused on the team chemistry and everything that maybe they don't want to take a risk on a player like that. That's their prerogative. They're running the club. So going to be interesting to see what they do with that DP slot. I do think the Dynamo need, for me, one more player that's going to really catapult them and kind of be a standard bearer from an attacking standpoint and a creative standpoint. That in combination will then make the Jack McGlynn signing even better. And I like him. He's got a nice cultured left foot. You're seeing him getting a couple of assists. It's a big moment for him because he's going to get real opportunity to be a consistent performer for the Houston Dynamo. So again, HoustonDynamo.com for your tickets. Season coming up. They've got single game now. Good for them and good for you because you can get into that Leo Messi game or the FC Dallas game. We're going to take a break here. It'll be a quick one, and then we will come back with more Dynamo talk and a surprise guest, or maybe not a surprise guest if you've been watching our social media. All right. As we go to break here, Danish Inspirations, Modern Contemporary Furniture, the best in modern contemporary furniture. They've got the stressless line over there. Go in there, see the Great Dane, Jan Christensen. By the way, support our sponsors of this show. They get us on the air. Danish Inspirations, Cactus Music, Nico Nico's, Hugh O'Connor's Pub, Snowdrop Foundation. That's the 501c charity. Support these great sponsors because they do support your game. Little Patagonia Empanadas over by our station. But they are also in Austin, and you can get their empanadas in Q2 Stadium and on Guadalupe near the University of Texas. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. More Soccer Matters coming up next, presented by the Daspit Law Firm.
You are listening to Soccer Matters on ESPN 97.5.
And on ESPN 92.5.
Brought to you by the Daspit Law Firm. From the Veritex Community Bank Studios, here's Glenn Davis.
All right, welcome back to Soccer Matters on ESPN 97.5, inching closer and closer to the start of the 2025 Major League Soccer season. So much going on. We got a U.S. Women's National Team game coming up. Plus, this summer, we will host the Gold Cup final as well. So the amazing things going on in Houston continuing. Houston Dynamo will start it off with FC Dallas, and then that's that much anticipated game against Inter Miami with Lionel Messi coming to town, and that's going to penetrate mainstream media here in Houston. No better person to catch up with than Dynamo center back coming off an outstanding season last year. We'll talk some Houston Dynamo now with Eric Sviatchenko. Eric, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Glenn. As always, a pleasure.
Yeah, it is. All right. So how about just some notes from you on preseason so far? You're a veteran. You go through this. It's a mindset getting prepared.
Yeah, I've had my swing of preseason, and I don't know which number, but it's maybe my 15th or 16th preseason. So I know what I'm going through, and it's always about kind of that fine-tuning the small kind of things you want to improve on from a tactical aspect, and how do you want to play. And we have kind of a pretty clear idea of how we play, but we also lost some key kind of component hereby players in that kind of game model. So we are kind of seeing if we can adjust a little bit and modify a little bit. And then it's about fitness, getting back to fitness. We've played already 4 games, building kind of the amount of play time. And last against Dallas, we played 75 minutes, and we're closing into that kind of 90 minutes mark where we can kind of wing it off and say that we are ready for the first game of the season.
Yeah, 2 scrimmages coming up or friendly games down in Florida with Columbus and I believe DC United, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And that'll be the fine-tuning for Ben Olsen and the Houston Dynamo. Eric Sviatchenko joining us here tonight. Okay, so when you talk to fans, the buzz is, okay, we lost Hector, we lost Coco, 2 phenomenal players. How is it going to be different without them? And that's a pretty big question. It's pretty open-ended, but it is what's on the mind of the players and the fans.
Yeah, of course. And it's a natural way of thinking that, okay, we had a playing style that was kind of the mini Barcelona in some places, and a key component was Hector with his kind of flair for knowing and seeing all these kind of small kind of intricate passes and all these things. Coco the same, had a bit more verticality maybe in his play and tempo and aggression. But football is such a fun and weird place at the same time, where you kind of you move on so quickly. And you have to be adaptable, and that's what we have been doing in this preseason. It's been 4 weeks, and we know that they're not here, and they're long gone in that sense. So we have tried and wiggle around how can we get better without kind of dropping our levels. And I must admit that the signing of Jack McGlynn has been a huge factor to my kind of more easy mind. I think he's next level talent, and something that we in Houston should be very, very happy that we have lured him in to play with us and hopefully rise even more with the playing style that we have. I think it suits him really well. I've talked a lot with him as well, and he likes it here already because the way that we play just suits him. And he kind of, I don't want to say that he's an Hector-like player or anything, but he brings what we maybe really wanted to, a lefty that can bring off the left side of it and can really pick up plays, has a tremendous set piece foot as well, which is something that I really value. So all in all, I think we are going on the right tracks, and Kovacic in that kind of Coco role has played a lot of minutes right now, and I think he's going to have an incredible season. It looks like he can really step up and take that responsibility. He has had a lot of responsibility in Poland, maybe not as much the last kind of 1.5 season, but now it's kind of also different players that can take that void and fill it out in their own kind of way.
He's Eric Sviatchenko, Houston Dynamo defender, came off a great season last year. You mentioned Jack McGlynn. Let's go into him a little bit more. We did an interview with him. He seems wonderful, on the fringe of the U.S. national team. I actually think that's very important for this market, that he's on the fringe of the national team as far as representation to the community. He does have ability from long range, and I think that's an element that would be a welcome addition to the Dynamo attack, right?
Exactly. I think we have a lot of strings, but we just need to, as well, we talked about, tune them into kind of being as good as possible. And with Jack's kind of lefty, it just creates some kind of different aspect to our game. Him and Arthur seems to have been relishing already quickly. They're kind of set up in the middle, and he just kind of composed and calm on the ball without stressing, and being 21 years of age. I think it's he is at a really good place, and as you mentioned, with being a national team player, also kind of gets a little bit of that interesting factor into a team that is having some players. We talked about Dorsey like the last 2 seasons. He's my good friend, but also my colleague. But I also see football from a perspective, and why wouldn't he feature, for instance, in the national team? Why were he not called up with 2 seasons now being such a key factor for a team? So maybe this is kind of the thing where we can push players and get them closer to their kind of respective national team.
Yeah, excellent point. We talked about that a lot on this show, that he should have been Griffin Dorsey brought into a January camp. We felt that. So it's very established. Great possession team. This in tune connects with the great defending team. You got great leaders like yourself, Artur. You had Hector in the past. You mentioned some of the players that can help unleash, the Dynamo attack and produce more goals and win more games, frankly, that you control. I sensed your frustration last year at controlling games, but not winning these games. Is it having more of a transition in vertical game? Is it tempo? Is it taking more risk? What is it beyond just individual players? Or maybe that's the answer.
It's always a balance. I think when you look at our kind of personnel, I think they all have attributes, they all have qualities to produce numbers that ultimately in football will produce wins. And when we say numbers, you look across the league and you can go into different teams, and then their front three, for instance, and then they have kind of those numbers, which is kind of 15 goals and 12 assists and 18 goals and 10 assists and so forth. And we have, just on the numbers side of it, maybe not close to that. But we have the players within this team. Like, Basi has all the things to produce those numbers. Ibrahim, all the things to produce numbers. Ponce, the same. So I think we have those players. It's just about how can we unlock that kind of freedom and decision making. And that's what we have really been working on this off season, and getting into the final third. Where do we position ourselves? It seems to be a recurring theme, but football is on a kind of very, very thin layer of success and unsuccessful. And we just need to take the right decisions. But we have to invest in getting those spots, and we are doing that. That's what we see the last kind of 4 friendlies. We are getting more verticality in our game. We can stretch the field more. We need to know that player without pressure and has time, there has to be runs going towards our kind of opponent's goal, and for that reason we can create easier goals instead of always need to penetrate by passes. We need to be sometimes a bit more unpredictable, a bit more simple, without being a kick and rush team. That's nothing to do, because it's a way of choosing to read the game. Okay, what does the game tells us? Yes, it has to be a ball going in deep, 1-against-1. We saw the Lawrence Inali goal in LAFC, the best example of how we could also play.
Yeah, and all these things parlay off the other, right? The possession game, if you got a mix of verticality to it, it's only going to enhance things. You might have a little bit more time on the ball in midfield.
Exactly.
These types of things can be the difference. Are you excited about those types of subtle changes that could be made this year? And then, of course, there still is the availability of bringing in a DP.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I sense where we're going, and I think it's a very good way. Again, it's not much that has changed. I think it's just the mindset and knowing that there are players that needs to be feeded in different ways. So I'm keen on us kind of releasing that type of play too, and not going away from DNA. But again, football is interchangeable in the sense of we can do our stuff to perfection, but we also have an opponent that maybe does something else that we might not have been on the look for, and they close down our possession game. They close Arthur and Jack McGlynn. What do we do then? Okay, the other thing. So again, we need to be football clever in that sense and see if we can figure it out within the first 10 minutes of what is this kind of a game, and then maybe it has to adjust, but we need to have that kind of palette of different type of play. The same with set pieces. Different type of set pieces can create a goal, open up teams. Suddenly it's 1-0 game that has opened up from being a 0-0 game.
And I get the sense, and I saw your goal in preseason, and I could see how happy you were. I mean, last year you should have had a half a dozen goals with a little bit of hand of fate and good fortune.
Yeah.
And I know that feeling, having been a center back. You came so close so many games. I'm just like, come on, something has to go in here because you're getting in great positions. You're excellent in the air. I would think that this is the year maybe you bang 4 or 5 in offset pieces.
That is my plan, Glenn. I had had 4 assists and 2 goals, so I was still involved in kind of a 6 tally of goal, which is nice. But I would like to have my head on or feet on a goal. And sometimes it's just about the timing of it or whatever it is. But as long as I see myself in the situation where I'm close and it's an incredible save of the line and whatever, then I can accept that sometimes it doesn't go your way. But 4 or 5 would be a very good start for me. And starting off season goal, historically, it means that I will go into the season with some goals. That's what I remember from all my other preseasons. Scoring a goal in preseason can lead to goals in the season.
Well, that's good news then, because you got one in preseason already. We're talking to Eric Sviatchenko, Houston Dynamo. You get your tickets at HoustonDynamo.com. We're forecasting more set piece goals here in the future. I don't think there's any question. With Hector leaving, do you get a sense, not that you weren't already a huge leader on this team, but do you get a sense that maybe you and Artur now, or maybe the elder statesman in kind of a way? I know it's a collective thing, and that's what everybody likes to say, but well, there's nothing better than being a player and looking across and seeing an Eric Sviatchenko and Artur in your locker room.
No, I think it's clear as well that we lost kind of our captain, we lost our most kind of influential player, and that's why, of course, there's Artur that has so much experience. He's still kind of relatively young, I would say, but has so many years in this league and just kind of goes about being over 30, if that's something that means that you're a veteran. Often it is. But having him and having myself, including with Griff Dorsey as well, I think he kind of shines his own age and takes much more responsibility. We have Andrew Tarbell, who's kind of on the verge of having a big kind of role too, lifting from Steve into another kind of player that he is. Daniel Steres as well. And then with these kind of small adjustments with younger players, but of course, it's a key thing that we need to figure out how we kind of manage this responsibility. But it's not something that's new. We had those players and we did the same things. Now we just need to do them without the other players. So it shouldn't change, but it's of course a thing that we need to be aware of and something that I'm looking forward to, because it's something that I've been doing for many years and something I'll try to do my very best to inspire and help and be the leader.
Eric Sviatchenko, he is one of the leaders of the Houston Dynamo, joining us. Just going back to Ezequiel Ponce and your thought on verticality, and I probably should have asked this question then because I'm kind of switching gears on you again here. I apologize.
No worries.
But I felt he played the game with his back to goal so much, and I have to think that's frustrating with a lot of players around him. And don't you believe that verticality now and a little bit more width in the game might give him some more ability to get turn and get chances facing goal a little bit more?
I think it's a very good analysis of him. He's very strong with his back towards the defenders, and he's good at that. But it is a game where he also times his run very, very good into the box, and also kind of we're getting it on the side, and he then knows where to kind of run deep, and he can get those passes from our tens, or Jack or Arthur, and they're higher up, or Griff or Aliu. If they're playing these positions, I think I've seen a lot of this in the preseason where he can actually stretch the back line really, really well. And hopefully that's going to give us some goals that looks a little bit different that we maybe have been used to, where it's kind of a high back line that we are just taking advantage of, and suddenly, boom, there's a 1-against-1 with the keeper. So he's actually deceptively fast, Ponce, and very, very physically too. So I think also there's with Ponce, I have a feeling that he also kind of has lifted his own kind of knowledge and worth, that he knows that, okay, I'm getting into a full season, a full preseason now, and this is my time. And you can always ask a striker, is it kind of 20 goals and 15 assists? Is that what of course he would say that's his dream. But I think just the presence of him and his experience, I think I'm not doubtful at all that he's going to produce this season for us.
Uses his body so exceptionally well,
yes,
too, around the box and protecting the ball. Ben Olsen did say on the show, though, that I don't want him coming back into midfield so much. I want him to stay higher up the field, but that might have been because he was wanting to get involved in the game maybe last year.
It can be that, or it can just be a kind of adaptation to the way that we play, and figuring out that, okay, if I stretch the field, it means that there's more space for myself. It's kind of always figuring out by learning in the games. And even though that he had pretty good amount of games, it always takes time to adjust. And I think now he exactly knows what he wants, and he can do those things in the game now.
MLS is changing. A lot of buying and selling. There's a lot of talk about all the buying that has gone on here in this off season. From your perspective, a guy that's played in the first division, the Super League in Denmark, with Midtjylland, with Celtic in Scotland, how do you see what's going on in Major League Soccer from the perspective of buying and selling, and the potential of MLS kind of joining the global calendar maybe in the future?
No, I think it's a very good way of thinking, that MLS has so much to offer, but there has always been this kind of a little bit of a weird setup compared to Europe and the leagues that you want to basically compete with for players, and you want to sell to them. But it's always, when we are in our preseason, they're all in their kind of 6 months last of their season, where they basically don't want to sell their best players. So changing the calendar might also, I think it's going to be a huge factor. How it's all going to be in the end, that's something else we'll figure out, because there's also all these weather kind of things we have to take in consideration, that United States is huge, and there can be minus something here and there can be summer here. So that's on another talk. But I think it's helpful with the selling and buying players. As I've understood it, it still seems to me like it's still kind of a trade. You don't have really any saying if you're getting sold, or so it looks like the same, but there's money involved. So my dream would be, of course, that there will be just exactly the same as in Europe. Free agency, you sell a player, you buy a player, they go straight into the kind of salary cap, and you can spend those money direct on a new player. So it kind of makes it more doable for the players and for the teams. But of course, I don't have the solution. I'm relatively new. I just have my own kind of little analysis of why has it been working so many years in Europe and has been working in MLS, but MLS has so much potential. That's what I'm saying. For within the next 10 years, it could be the league that everyone wants to play in, but then it has to be looking like a little bit more like Europe, I would say.
Eric Sviatchenko. Eric, final question before we let you go tonight. The Leagues Cup last year, I'm not sure if it was the first time that you played against Liga MX teams. You may have done that prior in your career, but there is kind of a rumor out there that the Dynamo would get Tigres in this, which would be amazing for this market because of the flood of Tigres fans and the potential maybe to earn some new fans. How did you like playing in the Leagues Cup and against Mexican competition, and maybe the differences they bring as teams?
I thought it was a great experience. It was my first time playing against Mexican teams. I've played, I think, sometimes against some South American teams, but just having United States close to Mexico and these leagues that has always been kind of talked about which one is the best, and then you have suddenly a league format that just kind of brings the best of the best playing within a month congested period. So I think I love the fact that we were playing against these Liga MX teams, and they were bringing something else. Speaking of verticality, aggression, it was different football, and I thought it was very much fun to play in those games.
Well, Eric, thank you so much. Wishing you the best of luck here in 2025 with you and your Dynamo teammates. I want to thank you for kicking it off well. I hope it's not the last time we have you on the show, because it's always tremendous information. Thank you very much for taking the time out to join us.
Of course. Thank you so much, Glenn.
All right. That's Eric Siachenko, one of the best center backs in all of Major League Soccer right there. And mark my words, I'm saying 3-6 this year for him off set pieces. I'm going to make him. We're not laughing about that, Eric.
No,
I'm serious. I'm putting my money on you.
That's great.
That'll do it tonight for Soccer Matters. Big thank you to everybody who tuned in. Reminder: get the podcast at Spotify, Apple, and Google. You can also grab it at ESPN975.com. Big thank you to John Daspit and the Daspit Law Firm for being the presenting sponsors of this show. Until tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Central Time. I'm Glenn Davis. Good night, everyone.